All right. Welcome everyone to what has been, would you say it's our favorite conversation, Andrew, lately, or would you say it's like the one that we have to have, but we don't want to have?
Yeah, it's a love-hate relationship.
I love
It's
hate.
a lot to go into it, but
Yeah,
I think big picture, a lot of good comes out of it, but it's still just, a lot of boxes to check.
that's right. That's right. So we wanted to put together this Q&A, really. This is going to be quite interactive. So folks on the call, make sure that you are writing down your questions. We will have you put them into the Q&A. Um, and we'll be sharing some links as we go along. I have my partner in crime, Davida McBain, on the back end helping us. And we're just waiting for Steve to join. He'll pop in soon. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'll just quickly, by way of introduction, I'm Allison Ball. I do lead the educational activities at the Grove, and I'm also the Director of PR and Communications at Lissio. But my role today is to be your moderator and hopefully to tease out the information. If Andrew gets too geeky, I'm going to have him unpack it. I'm going to have him get a little bit less geeky because your title, it's so funny, Andrew, when your email always says you're the chief orchestrator, which I think is really funny. So do you want to tell the audience just quickly about you?
Yeah, so we'll start with 2014 is when the company started, and like 2 months in, I had this weird, I don't know what it was, but I was like, everybody gets their own title, right? And one guy, and it's like it
And they
can't
get
be
to make
like,
it up.
yeah, and still a lot of people still do that. We have like sales samurai and like
Oh, that's great.
technical wizard. But one of our first employees, he was the developmental orchestrator, whatever that means. And then like didn't work out. But then I was like, dorchestrator. So that's where,
So that's why you went with that.
yeah, where it came from. But
Yeah.
um 10 years condensed into a couple sentences. I am the founder of Tech for Accountants. We're
Mhm.
IT that specializes in the accounting industry for medium, small accounting firms. A lot of the other IT firms out there will only talk to
Larger firms.
businesses. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
if there aren't at least 10 employees, it's
Yeah.
pretty much not even worth the conversation. So all of the people that send us work are other IT companies. And I mean, we
Yeah.
literally have probably over 1,000 solo firms
Yeah.
that work with us. So
Yeah.
full gambit. But
Yeah, and you do also work with larger firms. It's just that, you do end up getting so many referrals of the solos. Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we have some household names, top 100
Yeah.
firms in the rotation as well. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
handle it all.
speaking of top 100, Steve Perkins, who's going to join us, is the Chief Information Officer of Hogan Taylor, which is a top 100 firm. So when Steve comes in, we'll have him introduce himself. So let's talk about this. So I guess the question I have, it's a little bit confrontational. Was security ever optional?
I mean, optional in the sense of, is it illegal if you don't? It wasn't exactly, but at the
Mm,
same time, it's kind of like, well, is ethics required in an organization that isn't bound by a governing board? It's kind of like it should be, but then there's sort of like the cost risk
yeah,
benefit and the
yeah,
misconception of, well, I'm not big enough, so no one will target me. And it's not about
yeah,
getting targeted.
yeah. I think things really did change, didn't it? Because, and folks, we're going to get through this, what is required by the FTC, and then also what is required by the IRS publication 4557 for those of you that either do tax or payroll for, the folks that have a PTIN. Um, The difference is that the FTC is getting really serious now, aren't they? And so, can you tell the audience here, what was the difference on June 9th of this year, 2023? What was the big difference?
So the FTC Safeguards rules existed since 2002.
Hmm.
And so under the GLBA, it was mainly focusing on banks. And
Yeah.
it was if your bank does not have adequate cybersecurity. That's a big problem. Banks,
Right.
banks. But then they extended the definition, broadened it to basically a financial institution that's not governed under the SEC. So financial advisors have their own set of governing rules. But so they went to name specifically tax accountants.
They specifically called them in, specifically said that tax accountants are now included. Yes. And it doesn't matter
Correct.
how big you are. So, yeah.
Correct.
Hey, Steve, we're
There he
just talking
is.
about this one slide and then we're going to round back to you and we'll introduce you. So glad you made it.
Thanks.
So keep going, Andrew. So they specifically named the tax accountants.
Yeah, so they specifically named the tax accountants, and they put an arbitrary number of 5,000 records. So there's two different tiers of requirements,
you know what?
and we'll dig into it.
Hold on to that because we've actually got that. I don't want to give too much on this
Right.
one slide.
We'll dig into it later.
Yeah.
But
there was, I think the big thing is there was penalties now. Like there's actual penalties that they will
and deadlines.
So
the penalties before were basically where there's smoke, there's fire. And if there's a data breach, then they're going to turn around and look at what safeguards did you have in place. And we saw in 2019, TaxSlayer got hit really hard with not having proper security and having a data breach and it turning into a whole thing.
Right.
So they were pointing to, okay, it's not legally required. However, you didn't even hit some of the basic check marks.
Yeah.
So previously, if you had a breach, you would just have possibly your insurance company coming down on you or whatever. Now we're saying you might have the FTC in your door.
I can't even imagine how scary it is.
Yeah.
So Steve, welcome. We've already done introductions. I introduced you quickly as the CIO of Hogan Taylor, which is a top 100 firm. And I think the two of you together really bring different perspectives because you've built and grown an IT department. You know, just quickly, when did you started at Hogan Taylor many years ago, and the firm wasn't huge then, was it?
Yeah, when I started, I was the only IT guy, and we were 49 people.
Yeah.
And we've grown to over 400, and an IT team of 11. So I've seen it all and done it all.
Awesome. Okay, well, we're so glad you could join us.
Sure.
So let's quickly take a look here at the FTC Safeguards Rule, the overview really of it. So these are the 8 things that the FTC Safeguards Rule. I think the biggest thing that people will have a challenge with if they don't have an internal department, whether it's one Steve or 11 Steves, or Steve leading a team of mini Steves, is the big thing. I think, and Steve, maybe you could cover this. Like, how should a firm be thinking about a qualified, and like what makes a qualified individual? Because that's the first thing they say is you have to have a qualified individual to oversee.
That's going to be a tough one. I haven't seen what the attributes of that type of role are, but you've got to find somebody.
In your opinion,
in my opinion, if you're a small firm, you've got to get an MSP or somebody that
so
does
MSP is managed service provider. That's somebody like Andrew, like Tech for Accountants.
Somebody that does MSP work or outsource CISO. You got to start somewhere.
Right. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to bite people, really. And that one, Andrew, that's not optional, right? Like even if you are a really small firm, you can't get around that one, can you?
Correct. It's more the technical pieces that are the options. And if you dig deep enough in the FTC on their requirements for this, what they're looking for is someone with real world experience.
Real world, So they've done it before.
In something of the size that you're working with. So say a solo firm, maybe could get away with someone that's got a handful of other IT or a handful of other accountants that they're overseeing this for and have kind of gone through the process before, versus someone in Steven's position where, okay, real world know-how. This isn't just I installed Norton and clicked next 3 times. This is this is
Yeah, well, you
real.
basically, you're not Allison Ball. You couldn't come in and say, I'm qualified if I'm at
Yeah.
Allison's level of I can drive a car, I cannot fix the car, right? So
Yeah,
I mean,
or
really, right? I can
or
use a
train
computer.
NASCAR or
Yeah, no. You don't want me doing that. So the written risk assessment, I think that one is like fairly that you're going to look at the different areas that you could be breached, and I think there's various different checklists and things. And Andrew, you've got some guidance there. The limit and monitor. So this one's interesting. I'm going to flip this one over to Steve, because when we were first going through, learning about this together and developing materials, Steve, you told me something that was really interesting about the limiting and monitoring. Do you remember that conversation?
I don't. I've slept
Okay, I don't
since
want to
then,
put I don't
probably.
want to put you I don't want to put you on the spot. You actually told me that you don't have access to customer records in your firm because you don't need it.
Yeah,
So,
I'm the CIO, and I'm no longer a domain admin
right.
in my own firm because I don't need
You
to
don't
be.
need it. So
That's
the
right.
idea of identifying who needs what is a really important step, even in a small firm, right?
Oh yeah,
Like don't give everybody admin access,
yeah.
right?
You've got to adhere to least privileged access, where people can only
Least
least
privilege.
privileged access, where only you can only get to things that you need to get to for your job. The
Right.
days of just wide open wild west are over, and we're a good example of that. My guys removed me from being a domain admin years ago, because if
You
I
didn't need it.
got if I got compromised, there's just less attack surface. Um,
Yeah.
you've got to have good onboarding and good offboarding processes for your accounts, where if
Yep.
somebody leaves, that account goes dead that day, that kind of thing.
Yep. And so Andrew, when you work with your firms and you onboard them, that's probably one of the first things you guys do, right? You
it's
look at
part of
who needs what, access to what.
yeah, and different firms are going to have different, there isn't exactly a one size fits all, but the
Right.
guiding light of the least amount of privilege is super important. You think of, oh yeah, I have this contractor and they do my social media. For instance, I have a contractor that does social media on my behalf.
Yep.
She has access to nothing else.
Right.
Because she doesn't need anything else.
Absolutely.
She needs
Absolutely.
some recordings.
Yeah.
And the ability to post on my LinkedIn through an API.
Right. And
That is
that is literally it. Yeah.
yeah.
So let's talk about encryption. I think this is one of the most important things. And one of the things that the FTC Safeguards Rule has said is that you can no longer have personally identifiable information stored or transmitted in an unencrypted manner. So, Andrew, let's talk. Have you address this one, Steve? I know that Hogan Taylor has spent a lot of time working on that and making sure. And we'll get your opinion on the single portal in just a minute. But Andrew, how should a small firm think about this if they're mostly using email with their clients?
So, I mean, if you're mostly using email, don't.
Not a good idea,
Right.
is it?
Right.
Steve's
But
like, no,
you
stop,
know,
no.
it's part
Yeah.
of, I think we all kind of have a fundamental understanding of we should be doing things in an encrypted manner. But there's the flip side of, well, my customers are still taking a picture of their W-2 and texting it to me. And,
On your phone, just on
so
your phone, like not even through a secure system. Yeah.
right. So, I mean, there is a bit of education on teaching your clients that
Yeah.
this is important as well. So, I mean, it's not just on well, you need to be doing it, but your clients also need to be doing it. And we
Yeah.
run into it too. People will send us bank information over an email and they're like, can you update my account? And it's just like, I'm
No,
deleting
we have to
this.
delete this right now. Delete it
I'm
right now.
deleting this and I'm
Yeah.
sending you the link and you can do this through
Yeah.
an
Through our
encrypted.
secure.
Right. So
Yeah.
the two pieces, at rest and in transit. At rest, you could think of on your actual computer, sitting on the hard drive. And
Or in like a secure storage, like Smart Vault or something like that, right? Where it's
right.
encrypted. Yeah.
Right. So like
Yeah.
where
Or
that
Lithio.
file
Or Lithio would be a good one. Yeah.
right, where that file is living. So,
Yep.
so exactly in a portal like that. And in transit, basically two different things would be, say you have a credit card swiper and it takes that information and in transit through your own network
Yeah.
from credit card machine to the server where it's processed needs to be encrypted.
Yeah.
And as well as sending documents back and forth to your clients
Yeah.
through an encrypted manner.
Yeah, and Steve, in a larger firm, obviously, a lot more people, a lot more clients. I mean, a gajillion more clients, a gajillion more staff. You've kind of come to the conclusion that really a single portal is the right way to go. And so, can you explain what that is and why that might be something that even smaller firms should look at?
Yeah, I mean, email is the easy way to communicate, but it's truly an awful way to exchange information. It's not meant for that. It was never meant for that, exchanging documents and things. And we've, as an industry, have got to get better about this.
Yeah, take it seriously.
The first thing you can do is manage the front door by when you initiate that client relationship. This should be part of your engagement letter, and part of your conversation is that we will not exchange any PII or anything like that over email. This is
Right.
our firm is done doing that. If you send us something like that, we will not accept it because it's a huge risk to you and us. So initiate your client conversations in that way.
Yeah.
But then give them a very good alternative that's easy to use. And in a single portal like Lissio is perfect for that. We've just got to get away from email.
Yeah,
It's
and the email
such,
just enforcing it. I think the enforcing thing is really interesting and making it part of
yeah,
that onboarding conversation, and then
yeah,
having some kind of a conversation or recourse with clients who keep offending,
yeah.
right? Like
It's
say, yeah, like even to the point of disengaging if you have to, like just say you just continue to. One little tip there that I want to throw in is Linda Artisani has a great tip. She says, um, if you have a client that's a sort of a you give them all these secure options, right? You have a secure portal or you have a, you have a different, you've given them the ways they have to behave and then they don't, you can ask them to sign a security waiver.
yeah.
And that one, no one will sign. You don't actually even have to create it because they're not going to go to their insurance agent and say, I need more insurance because I'm going to take on the risk for Hogan Taylor.
Yeah.
No one's going to do it, right?
You should also, on your side, turn on any features in your firewall or your security layers that are around DLP or data loss prevention, and at least set up rules or templates for social security numbers, credit card numbers, things like that, so that your folks can't.
Exactly. And that's all in the training as well. You can do that. Like that's, you train your personnel. So Gary just popped up. He said, let's do a quick poll because we are doing CPE. And folks, this is designed to be a Q&A. So we're just continuing with the overview, but we'd love to have your questions popped in when you're ready. So let's just give it, I don't know, 30 seconds here. Are you familiar with the FTC Safeguards Rule? Yes, no, I've heard of it, but I'm not sure what it is. And I guess what you've got to kind of do is put yourself in the mindset of you didn't see this slide first. We should have asked this before we hit the slide. So Gary, count us down and we can stop whenever you're ready.
Yeah, we've got everybody participated here and it actually ended up about 50, well, not about 50-50.
50-50, okay.
Yes, 50% said yes, and 50% have heard of it, but not sure what it is.
Okay, great. All right. So this is good. The 50% who are aware of it, hopefully we're giving you some good information of where to watch out for. Now the rest of it's pretty straightforward. You're going to make sure you're training everybody. All training, it's not just your security personnel, it's train everybody on security. Monthly, exactly. Have regular meetings with your staff. I know you do, Steve. Andrew, I know you've got materials you can give your clients that help them with that. And there's all sorts of training you do. So develop an incident response plan. That's pretty simple. That's what are you going to do if you have a breach? And the FTC has some really good guidance there. But there's a lot of shocking things you've actually got to do, including, calling there's a bunch of people you got to notify, and it's kind of scary. And now nobody on this call is a publicly traded firm company, but did you guys see they have to report within X number of hours now? It's like 48 hours or something. It's like they have to report it right away. So that's a big one. So you expect that one, the reporting to get tighter. Now, periodically assessing the security practices of service vendors. Let's talk about that. Steve, I'm going to kick that one over to you. How deep do you have to go, and what does that mean?
That is a tough one for a small firm. I mean, we're a pretty large firm, and we've in the past couple of years initiated vendor management practices. So it's not that hard to do if you want to do it at a lighter layer. When you initiate vendor relationships, just ask questions. Look on their website for their security posture, and oftentimes you'll find their SOC 2 report or a report on what they do for security, and just document that. Keep it on your network and revisit it annually, and make sure that they're checking all their boxes when they're dealing with your client's data. We go well beyond that. But you don't have to. You should be doing something with vendor management.
To be aware of it, and I think just ask those questions. How, is your data encrypted? Are your staff trained? Who has access to it? And they should have a security policy that they can share with you. Yeah. And then, Andrew, let's talk about multi-factor authentication. This is one of those things that people really feel slows them down. But why is this probably maybe one of the most important things, other than, I would say, number 3, number 4, and number 8, I think, are maybe your most important things on here, right?
Yeah, I'd say holistically, if I had to pick one form of security, if I'm only allowed one, I'm probably going to take multi-factor authentication along with like unique passwords.
Yeah.
Because the problem, and again, this comes down to just human nature. We want things to be easy. We don't want things to get in our way.
Right.
And in our heads, for some reason, everyone thinks that they're exempt from data breach and hacks, as if the people that get hacked thought that it was coming. So, but the great thing with two-factor authentication, most people reuse passwords in some capacity. It's terrible. Everyone knows they shouldn't, but it does happen. So this is where a password manager comes in. You can have unique passwords in everything. However, because people don't do that, I saw this great meme the other day, and it was like how people think that their passwords get hacked. And, it's the hackers in the hoodie. And it's like, oh, with all these great video cards, like I broke the encryption code and now I've got Steve's password. And it's like, what really happens?
No.
It's like, hey, look, Steve's email was leaked on the Smashmouth message board. Let's copy paste his email and password everywhere and see where we can log in.
God rest his soul.
We got to make sure that doesn't happen to Steve. But multi-factor authentication, it shuts it down, right? Because if someone tries to use Steve's password and email, then Steve's phone gets a ping.
Right.
And he knows right away, no, not me. And they don't have the code.
Right. So it's, even if there's weak security on the password side, they still do not have the ability to get access. And then if they tried to go in a backdoor way, if everything's encrypted, then, we're stopping on multiple fronts. So it's kind of like at the airport, they've got multiple layers of security that all protect against different things. So it isn't just I have great passwords and two-factor authentication. I'm secure, because if you leave your laptop on a train and somebody has a little hard drive toaster, they can just pop it out and take all the data, and it's very...
But if it's encrypted, then they get a bunch of gobbledygook.
If it's encrypted, it just says there is nothing here.
I'd recommend too that you turn on number matching. Just go beyond approve, deny, because in a large firm, we've seen this, and we've had to move up to number matching because you get approve, deny fatigue, and people will start to instinctively just, when their phone dings, and they just hit approve. And you can't do that, because you've got to raise your awareness even to the next level. So we've turned on number matching for just 2-digit. You type in a 2-digit number, which is super easy.
Stops you. It's that extra little step, doesn't it? It stops you thinking, maybe I shouldn't do this.
Yeah, exactly.
So the great news here is that for those of you that were not aware of the FTC Safeguards Rule, a lot of this is covered when you do your WISP, which is the Written Information Security Plan. And for those of you that do taxes or do payroll for clients, you'll have a PTIN, which is a paid preparer taxpayer ID number. And so let's go to take a quick look about, let's quickly cover exemptions, because I think one of the things is, and folks, we haven't seen any questions come in yet, so we're just going to keep going on the presentation. I'm assuming that you're interested in this, but if you have questions, please put them in, because we did promise that this would be very interactive. So the exemptions, let's talk quickly. Andrew, I kind of stopped you earlier about the exemptions, and I think this is one of the things that has the biggest misconception, is that if you're a small firm and you don't have 5,000 customers, right? Well, I mean,
Right.
Hogan
So
Taylor might not even have 5,000 customers. I don't know. Steve, you don't have to answer that. But it's not 5,000 customers. So
no,
take us through, break this down, because this is one of the biggest misconceptions, is that it doesn't apply to me.
Right. And we hired a nice $600 an hour FTC former prosecutor to give us what is the definition of a consumer. And essentially what it comes down to, if somebody sits at your computer, what can they see? And so if you're using something like QuickBooks Online and you can see your own clients' customers, that
and their employees and their
employees, all that information, that counts as a consumer. So when you're seeing social security numbers or even bank feeds, anything that you couldn't just go on a website and pull from their website is what's counted in that. And there was a data breach from a tax firm in New York, and they had something like a most people are familiar with like a Right Networks, right? That they could double click a button and then go into their client's QuickBooks. So one of their clients was a medical center. So the tax firm got hacked. And
by the way, it wasn't through Right Networks.
We just
have to clarify that. There wasn't, Right Networks was not involved, but it was a hosted QuickBooks environment.
Correct. I meant it in a way that more people would probably understand Right Networks versus saying like an RDP connection. But so not namely Right Networks, but a cloud hosted environment. So
they got in as they basically got the credentials of the accountant, and then they got in as him or her.
So the accounting firm gets hacked, and then through proxy, the medical center gets hacked as well. So, but what happens is the clients and patients of the medical center filed a class action lawsuit, not against the medical center, but against the tax firm. So the accountant ended up getting a class action lawsuit.
Playing out in the courts right now, isn't it? And that's like, so you could have access to a lot of people via your books. And the ones that I think are really interesting is just maybe one or two e-commerce clients is going to blow you past that 5,000, right?
Yeah, like our own accountant, by us being a client, puts him at over 20,000 records.
Right there.
So he could have us as his only client. and it applies to him. So really it's the people like the mom and pop that are retiring that do it for a couple friends are usually the ones that aren't in the 5,000. Like if you have a handful of business clients, 50 clients with 100 of their own clients puts you over that.
That's right. Yeah. Steve, how do you guys think about this? As far as, is there anything you want to add there? I mean, you guys didn't have to do that calculation at the bottom because you know right away.
Yeah, it quickly becomes exponential, and you start seeing it when you start filling out cybersecurity insurance questionnaires. You start seeing that the insurance companies start recognizing that you've got risk when it's like millions of records. Because if you really think about it, it's like what Andrew said. It's it starts
It's
multiplying
people.
very, very
Yeah.
quickly. And if you start believing that it's just 10,000 records because you've got 10,000 clients, no,
No.
it's some exponential number above that that is even hard to fathom. But that's what you've got to protect
Yeah.
with security or cybersecurity insurance is more like 1 million, no, not 10,000.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that the cyber insurance is like, actually, we actually have a question from Jonathan that just popped in. I've heard that cyber insurance is useless because it won't pay out if you have a breach related to email. Is that true, or am I missing something? That's actually not true. I think what we're
No.
getting at there is that if you've said you've encrypted and you haven't, that it won't pay out.
Yeah, they'll investigate, but if you can show that you've done the things that you've asserted that you've done in the application, then you're not giving them any reason to not pay. But
Right.
they're going to try.
Right. They're going to try because they're a business too, right?
Yeah, that's
right. Well, I mean, just like any insurance, you know, the person comes out and says, oh, well, this is your fault because you didn't do X, Y, Z.
Right.
So if you can present the amount of effort and security that a reasonable person in your situation would have put forth, and like Steven said, if you're not misrepresenting yourself on the application,
right,
then it's not like they're discovering a new risk that they hadn't accounted for. It's already been disclosed. So in the email scenario, I suppose it could be if you said, I have email security XYZ, and you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you had a lot of personally identifiable information stored in your email and then someone got your credentials to get into your email. So I think the interesting thing about PII, personally identifiable information, is that it is the definition of the FTC definition is very broad. And it's literally just like you could have name and address or name and email or name and phone number, or it could even be first name, last name, I don't think counts, but it's almost like everything that combined with any other piece. And the reason is that the cyber criminals will collect all these different pieces until they have the full puzzle.
Yes.
And then they can completely take over or really destroy that person's life. So, or scam them in some way. So people have to be really thinking about it. Like if you have a client and then and then like a scammer knows all of their clients, they can impersonate them, right? So you have to think about all the scenarios and why that you need to protect all that information. Yeah. So very quickly, we're going to go through the IRS 4557 requirements. And this one basically is we've talked a lot about these things, but the main thing is to take the basic security steps and that includes that written information security plan. And that one is really your guideline for, it's sort of like your Bible. It's like your roadmap for it. Those of you that don't have a WISP on the call, that's your first best step, right? Because it creates a set of standards. It alerts you to do the different things that you need to do, secure your wireless networks, create those strong passwords, use security software, protect your client data, spot data theft and monitoring ETIN, PTINs. That might be just a little bit related to taxes, and you can learn how to do that. Recognize your phishing scams. So this is where your education comes in. Guard against the phishing emails. This again, education. This is probably what you do monthly, Steve, with your staff. Being safe on the internet. I think that's, there's lots of guidance there. Now, reporting the data theft and responding and recovering, those are going to be if that happens. But let's talk about we'll talk about the WISP in a minute, Andrew. I'm going to have you kind of cover the overview of that, but let's talk about this passwords. So Steve, you had some great guidance for how you think about strong passwords.
Yeah, I mean, the current thinking, and it has been for past 5 to 7 years, to get away from complex passwords that you can't remember because people end up writing them down on paper. In fact, there has been an offshoot lately of people that now believe that the best password maintenance is to write it down on paper and keep it at your house or something. But I've heard that. But yeah, you want to really switch to
old school is good.
Multiple word password phrases that are easy to remember, but not easy to hack.
You have a funny one. Do you want to tell us the funny one that you have?
Was it Was it Die Hard is a Christmas movie?
Yeah. Die
Yeah,
Hard is a
something like that.
Christmas movie with an exclamation point
Right.
at the end, or
Yeah, exactly. Something like that.
or Die Hard
Something,
1 is a Christmas movie,
yes.
right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, with upper and lower. And the reason I think that is important is that the that's something that you'll remember, right? And like it could be your child's first, first recital. Mary's first recital was on September 1st, 2022, right?
Yeah.
Like no one would know that except for you, right? So you could create whatever password, and then where you use that strong password, at least how I think about it is, I use that strong password to go into my password vault,
right.
and
Just
then
like
from there,
we
and
use
then from
one
there I have
password.
gobbledygook,
Right.
right?
That automatically fills websites for you.
Yeah.
That's what we use too, one password.
One
And I can't
password.
imagine going back now to
I know, me
trying to
neither. I just have
maintain.
to remember that one long thing
Yes.
that has numbers, letters, exclamation points, question marks, whatever, special character, upper lowers. But it makes sense to me, the one that I have. And then it's, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I think it might be time for another poll. Let's go ahead and Gary, let's pop that second poll. Okay, do you believe the FTC Safeguard Rule applies to you? Do you need a WISP? So you're going to answer yes or no. So quickly we can go through that one. And then Gary, let us know when you're ready to move on from that.
I really think if you serve clients in any capacity, you need a WISP. Even if you think you're
So Steve's
exempt.
telling you what to answer there.
even if you think you're exempt.
Even if you think you're exempt. Yeah.
Well, people, so we do have 100% participation, and everyone agrees with you there, Steve.
They need it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's great. Mike has a question that's going back to 455 back to the FTC. The continuous monitoring piece is what I can't figure out how to do as a small firm. What are some affordable solutions there? So Andrew, let's have you answer that one.
Yeah, so the continuous monitoring piece, and this is one of those, like, this is why a lot of other IT companies won't tackle this unless you have 10 or more employees. But there's software called intrusion detection systems, and like the one we use, the baby bottom tier starts at $500 per month. So it's the cloud version of it. It's like, for a firm with 5 employees, it's not going to make sense for that one piece for the continuous monitoring to be spending that kind of money. So that's one piece of the puzzle for continuous monitoring. There's also a RMM tool, a remote monitoring management tool, where you can be checking. We sort of make the analogy of it's like a heart rate monitor.
Yeah.
Where, if your heart rate is elevated, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's an emergency. It could be like, okay, well, you're exercising, so that's why your heart rate is up.
Yeah.
But if you're sleeping and your heart rate's elevated, then maybe something's wrong. So it's sort of the alerts of this seems peculiar, look into it.
Yeah.
So there's 2 pieces of software that a managed service provider will use to be able to do the continuous monitoring and maintenance that it's.
As a small firm, just to go back to Mike's question, he's a small firm. So how can he think about this? Does he need to sign up for something like tech for accountants, or
obviously I'm super biased.
Yeah.
But I mean, the reality is, spending a couple $100 with us versus over $6,000-7,000 a year to do it yourself with software you probably aren't that familiar with using.
So you guys can provide it at an affordable rate.
Right, we buy thousands of licenses. So the software vendors say, okay, we'll give it to you at a very affordable price.
And then I think the best thing is because you guys run it, and also you guys run it and you let people know. So I think that's super important. Like I think the thing is reach out to, if it's not tech for accountants, Andrew, I'm just going to mention some others. There's Tech Guru. Well, they only take larger firms, but
Yeah, I'll name everybody that sends all of the smaller clients to
Twiznet,
us.
larger firms. Yeah, but they're all really
Swissnet,
good,
Nerd
right?
Squad.
Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
really good, right? So you really should be doing that and making sure that you're covered there. Securing the wireless networks. Let's take a few seconds there, because a few minutes there, and talk about securing wireless networks, because, and I don't mind if it's Steve or Andrew who picks this one up. It's a little bit above my pay level to fit my grade level to figure it out myself, but there's something you have to do in a home office or a small office, or really in any office, where you've got to turn on or off some things.
Let me.
Okay. Andrew
I
wants
volunteer.
it. Okay.
All right.
So what do you have to do when you're in it doesn't matter what office you're in. What do you have to do with your wireless networks to secure them?
All right. So most people, all right, I get a new internet service provider, move into a new location, and we'll go at like the lowest level. I had AT&T in my house, and they come in and set it up, and Andrew's house 1, 2, 3, 4 is my network, and my password is something crazy that they gave me. It is what it is, right? But what you need to do is a lot of routers will have a guest network, and the biggest difference between a regular network and a guest network is the regular network, I can log in on my phone, and then knowing the credentials to log into the router, I can do whatever I want. And because I geek out on this stuff, I was at an Airbnb this weekend, and the first thing I do, I go to their internet and I Google, what is the default login for Comcast internet? And the username is admin, the password is admin. And yes, like I geek out on this stuff, right? But so I look at their gateway and I type in, I go to the website 192.168.1.1, and that's what's your username and password. And it's like, well, I Googled admin, typed it in, and I got in. I'm not going to do anything nefarious with it, right? It's just, this is what I see all the time.
So they could have just literally shut you down by logging in to their Comcast account and changing the username and password.
The first time you log in, it even says you're using the default username and password.
Okay.
You should change it. But I wasn't going to like change it and then message them and be like, you're welcome. So it's just like,
did you alert them? No, I have to know. Did you tell them?
I just keep it to myself and go off my hotspot. Because
it's not a secure network. And then there was something else you had to say. You had to say, so I heard a couple things there. Make sure it doesn't say Andrew's house, like Allison, and then my address, right? Like make sure, like, it shouldn't be identifiable. Make something up.
Right. It shouldn't be Hogan Taylor Wi-Fi.
No.
It should be, I don't know, apple pie guest.
Yeah. Something that people they can't figure out where physically that place or whatever, who owns that.
And it being the guest network. Yeah. So that in that scenario I had with the Airbnb, if it were a guest network and I typed in the 192.168.1.1, it would just time out and say there's nothing here. Right. If I'm on the real network, it says, welcome, try a username password. I Googled it. It was right there. So, I mean, like, is every person on earth going to do it? No. Are people that know what they're doing and having bad intentions?
Right.
Yes. And I see this, I do it everywhere I go just because it's a party trick kind of deal.
Okay, so, we need to write an article for Insightful Accountant. Here's like horror stories, wireless network horror stories.
Andrew could have quite easily set up port forwarding in that router and punched a hole so that when he was outside back at his house, that he could get into the network and start pinging internal IP addresses. I mean, that easily, and they would have never known.
They'd have no clue. They'd just be like, well, I'll call Comcast. Something's wrong with them.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Comcast guy doesn't know how to fix that either.
Yeah. So that's super important. So we've got a we actually have we got haven't had many questions come in, folks. That Jonathan and Mike, thank you for asking those questions. If you have any more, please put them in, folks. But the WISP, I think we talked a little bit about it, and the most notable things just to cover I think the most notable things are the personally identifiable information cannot be transmitted via unencrypted methods, or it can't be stored. So we covered those things. You need a solution for that, something that is using, top grade encryption. Steve, when you're looking for encryption, what are you looking for? What is the number that you're looking for on the
Oh gosh,
encryption?
that's above my pay grade, but I've got staff people
Like
that look
bank
for that.
level, bank
Yeah.
level. Yeah, you want it to
And
be encrypted as same as your bank, right?
the good thing is that since we're mostly in a cloud environment now where you're paying others to secure your data,
Yeah,
most often they handle the encryption. You don't have to worry about it, but you
right,
do need to check and make sure what their encryption level is and that it's
right,
encrypted at rest and in travel.
right. And then we talked about limiting the staff access and, granting only what's needed to do the job. And in case, Steve was generous to share his story of he actually doesn't have access to any client data because why would he need it,
Yep.
right? Multi-factor authentication in combination with strong passwords, and that's using the passphrases with a password vault. And then background checks are required. Now that one is like, wait, what? Most people, I was actually speaking with a representative of the AICPA and they didn't know that. And so that one is like, hey, why would you do that? These people are already working for you. Well, because you actually, unbeknownst to you, you actually it's very not likely, but you could have a criminal already working for you. So you want to do a background check and then that regular staff training. So, and this, by the way, I put in just as a screenshot here. This little bad boy here, this little checkbox that people have been checking to say that they have the WISP.
Yep.
They've been doing this since 2019. And so it's really important that you do, if you are an IRS paid preparer and you have a PTIN, you want to make sure that you do have your WISP in place because that's super important.
And
Now,
if you're an IT guy and your partners start emailing you asking, hey, or saying, hey, I'm having to check this box this year. Do we have this? It's nice to be able to say yes.
yes, we do have it,
Instead of what does that mean? Right.
and send it over. And hopefully the education that the world has done in all the different areas, hopefully all this education has helped people understand what they really do need. Now, we actually have a course. So if you don't know where to go, like you've learned what you've learned on this class, and you don't know where to go, there's actually a course, and I'm going to have Davita share a link in a minute. But I think we need to do one more poll. I think, oh yes, Davita has already shared. And so to help fast track your WISP, so Insightful Accountant has teamed up with the Grove to give you $100 off the step-by-step masterclass. Now, the cool thing is Andrew and Steve are instructors on that. So you're actually going to see them go deep. And then we also have Randy Johnston and Don Brolin. And so it's a fantastic course there that you can take. So just make sure you scoop that link because that link will give you the money off. Now, then we need to tackle the biggest challenge, which is people. And Wendy just popped a question in and said, I can't get clients to use my secure portal, so they're constantly sending me documents attached to email. What can I do about that? I'm really worried about the risk.
Electric shock therapy.
Electric shock.
Yeah, this is something that we run into
all the time.
All the time. And one of our clients the other day, she set up a policy just company wide. We do not accept attachments. If somebody sends a document that is attached, they have a rule that it replies to the person, your message was deleted, use the portal.
Yeah, good.
So Steve, do you have that in place? How do you guys handle that? That sounds like a great way to go. Like if someone sends you an email and immediately gets a bounce back saying, oh, sorry, you had an attachment,
We haven't gone that far yet because it's tougher to steer a larger firm towards that quickly. But We handle it with training and data loss prevention so that our people aren't sending things out.
Right.
We do heavily use a client portal, one of the industry standards. But the best thing is that where we're heading is towards a single portal where all communications are secure, file transfers in one place, and there's no other option. This is how we do it.
Right. And when you make it, I think when you make it easy, that's the thing that you've got to find out. You've got to figure this out. You've got to make it I hate to use this word, but you got to make it idiot proof, right? You've literally got to make it so that you're changing the habits. And I heard a couple things here that I think are worth repeating. Steve, you said you have to make it part of your onboarding.
Yeah,
and you have to, as you onboard your new clients, and many of you are going to be, are going to be talking to people, maybe clients soon about their year end. Maybe you only work with them once or twice a year and you're going to be handling their year end, or you're onboarding new clients, so that you can, do their taxes or what have you. That's the time, is agree on get your WISP in place, agree on what software you're going to use, what services, what providers you're going to use. Lissio is a fantastic one to take a look at first because it is that secure portal. We also, I'm going to give a shout out to Smart Vault. It's a great place to, permanently store your data. Tech for Accountants, SwissNet, Practice Protect. There's all these different ones that you can have so you need that kind of combination of things. And then the passwords and the multi-factor authentication. But you also need to be thinking about your staff. And the more single point solutions that you bolt on, the more places that more chaos you're creating for your staff as well. So there's kind of this two-sided challenge, and you really have to make it so that it's easy for your people.
And one other thing that we've seen a lot of people do is when clients have the ability to upload documents through a portal, they'll put it in their email signature. I do not accept
great one.
I do not accept information, like sensitive information, via email. Click here to upload documents to my portal. So it's always there. They don't have to consciously think about it.
Find it,
and it's only one extra click to do it the right way versus thinking, where do I do it? Because really we're attracted to the easiest way.
Oh, of course. And sometimes you only have your phone in your hand, right? And so that's where also having a mobile solution for your clients is going to be really important. Because if all they have in their phone is their hand and you don't give them a mobile solution.
Yeah, and we have clients on Lissio, and that's exactly how they use it.
On the phone. Yeah, because otherwise what you're forcing them to do is to go back to their office and log in. Right. So you really need to think through like the whole sort of area there. And then how can you reduce your risk, comply at the same time, and not go crazy or spend, gajillions of dollars. Right. Yeah. So Gary, I think we've got one more poll. Do you want to go ahead and last poll? Would you like information on the WISP Masterclass by the Grove? And we've actually already given the information, so it's in the chat. So that's just yes or no. Easy one for those of you that need the CPE. And are there any other questions that have come in? This one I'm just going to throw in. This is a question that I think I'd like you both to answer, and they can be different answers. What is the most important thing to do first?
Most important is everything, but you had said starting with the WISP is a good starting point because it's going to give you a framework and ask the questions that maybe you hadn't thought about. Right. So instead of, are you doing everything you can to secure your firm? Well, yes, I am. Could you give me an example? But there might
be some things you don't know, right? It's kind of like a checklist, isn't it? It walks you through what you need to do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like saying to your clients, like, are your books reconciled every month? And they just say, well, of course they are. I click select all on QuickBooks and it guesses automatically the categories.
And then I click
accept all. Yeah. And then it's
there's
reconciled.
A difference, but I'm
an accountant.
Yeah.
right? And so it's kind of the same thing. Like people that aren't in that world wouldn't necessarily know, but there's templates that you can use. Obviously, we have a template that's geared towards smaller firms like 10 and under, and the IRS has one as well. Theirs has like 60.
And actually, if you take the course, we give you all of that, like including all
Right.
the policies and procedures and everything. Steve,
Which
what
makes
would
it
you say? Yeah, Steve, what would you say is the most important thing to do first?
I mean, beyond having a business grade firewall and nothing less, nothing that you can buy at a retail store. Beyond that, what I always come back to is that our biggest risk in our firm really is any user that has a working mouse clicker is a huge risk to our firm. So like is monthly security training like no before is right up there with the WISP, like equivalent.
Yeah.
That's how things happen, is because of people, typically, not because of our.
It's a moment. It's really a moment of its innocence and a moment of its good intent and innocence.
So what we try to do is we try to keep average awareness of all these things high across the firm. Just keep
do
it.
Do you use Know Before?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
we have monthly. They have to do 12
yeah.
monthly lessons.
Yeah. That's good. Okay. And it's pretty reasonable cost-wise, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
not
not
much per user. So that's a little bit for bigger firms, maybe some of you from larger firms, but Know Before is one that helps you recognize phishing emails and different kinds of scams. And
yes,
they have little tests that people can take, and they actually test people to see whether it's, so it's a good one.
Yeah.
So, well, we got to the end, and we had thank you to the folks that asked the questions. So I really appreciate everybody's time. We have somehow, it's not difficult to fill an hour speaking with experts like Andrew and Steve. But I want to thank everybody for attending, and thank Gary and this webinar is recorded, so it'll be sent out to everybody. And I hope you all enjoyed this as much as I did. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. See you soon.